Welcome to another episode of Beyond Four Walls. I'm your host, Jodie Fraser, and today I have an inspiring episode lined up for you. Joining me today is Kyle West, a leader in recruitment for SpicerHaart, with a rich background spanning various industries. His expertise in fast-paced environments and his dedication to driving change make him an ideal guest for my podcast. And in this episode, we'll discuss Kyle's journey, exploring the challenges and triumphs he has experienced along the way. We'll uncover the secrets to his success and discuss how he's managed to stay ahead in the ever-evolving landscape of property management. Kyle, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. And I've decided I need to have you introduce me every time I walk into a room now.
I'll get the applause. It'll be great.
Yeah, that was quite something. But no, thank you. I'm looking forward to having a chat with you.
Of course. So just can you start with sharing your journey into property recruitment? It's not your background, is it? And, what drew you to the crazy world of property?
You're quite right. Yeah, my background has absolutely nothing to do with property. My only real relationship with property prior to working in recruitment for it is that I happened to live in some. That was about it. So my whole background was hospitality for the most part. I kind of fell into that whilst I was at uni. I wasn't even studying for that. I was studying for theatre actually, and theatre studies and a bit of film and TV.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of gave me skills for being able to talk to people, and actually I'm drawing on some of those now with video interviews that we've started to introduce. So it's that whole thing of you putting on a show a little bit, use your hands a bit more on a camera when you're doing video interviews, and so I draw on that. But I was working in pubs at the time, and then that's when I left uni. That was a very obvious thing for me to carry on doing. So I was already at that point, I think, a supervisor or assistant manager. I was like 19, I think, when I got my first management role, and that pathway led to me moving around a little bit within hospitality. So back then, it was very hard to become a manager at a young age in hospitality. So it was always the older managers that would come around, and they may even get sacked from other jobs, but they'd get into another job based on they're older, they're more experienced. And whereas now, if you look in hospitality, really it's become, because places are open longer and all these things, the hours, a lot of the managers are so much younger now that I probably would have thrived in today's environment
Yeah.
there. But I had to really battle for those opportunities back when I was younger. But I did really well. Really happy with how my career turned out there. I got to an area manager role by the time I was 28. Eventually Birmingham for a year or two with that. Came back to Wales after my son was born, and then I was moving around a little bit in hospitality still. I was still at area manager or operations manager level, but made a decision towards the end of 2019 that I was like, I need to get out. I need, it's too much now at that point. Especially I had two kids at that point as well.
Okay.
So my wife was definitely more burnt out than me, but I was struggling with it. The needs of hospitality, it's quite demanding as well. So I made the decision to funny enough, we're going to talk about, I guess, mental health and stuff later on, but my mental health was quite badly impacted, so I was advised to take some time out. So I thought I was going to get more time to myself to reset than I did, but obviously the world closed after about 2 or 3 months of it, and then lo and behold, I was having to do the homeschooling thing with my kids and everything. But luckily the weather was good, wasn't it? So I had an opportunity to get into more sort of administrative things at that time. So I studied on how to teach English as a second language during that time, because it was closely aligned with what my wife does. So I did TEFL, which is a lot of people have done that now. It's like an online qualification you do. It's quite a hefty thing, but once you've done that, you're able to teach English as a second language. So that was interesting to do, and it was a change of mindset for working. So I was actually, at this point, I was getting paid to do something completely different to what I'd done before, and that was kind of a real shift for me mentally. And then obviously COVID was happening, all these things going on. I got to 2021, and it was kind of like, because I'd sold a house in that time as well, actually, because we had a property that we sold up, so I had a bit of money I could sit on. So at some point, though, it was a bit like, well, I don't want to spend all this money on just not working. So I started to put my name out there, and I was adamant that I wasn't going to apply for anything in hospitality at all. I was going to apply for admin jobs, anything that would give me that office background, because I'll say this till I'm like, well, I'll be saying this till my day I die. If you work in hospitality, you're a manager, you are doing bits of every kind of job that's out there. Marketing, admin, just recruitment, actually, and
Mm.
using all these skills. I'd interviewed loads of people. I'd hired probably a couple of hundred people in my years, but I couldn't get a job in any of those industries. They just look at it and think, oh, he's working in hospitality, is not suitable. And some of these were
Mm.
jobs that, and I mean this in the nicest way, but they were very low entry level roles that I know I could have done. But I made a decision that I could afford to just only apply for those. And I think it was the change of mindset that a lot of companies went through during COVID. I know a lot of, well, in fact, real estate suffered from it. A lot of people left real estate at the time during COVID to
Mhm.
go for jobs with different working hours and such. It meant that I actually got looked at more, I think, than I would have at any other time. So COVID gave me opportunities. So I was getting contacted by almost every role I was applying for. In fact, I was offered two other jobs at the time I took the job at SpicerHaart. So when I applied to SpicerHeart, I had no idea who SpicerHeart were. They It was through an external agency that took me on, and then they obviously gave me a bit of information about the role. And I had no idea what a talent acquisition specialist was. That was the job title. I was like, that
Okay.
looks, yeah, because I just clicked on it. I think just thinking like, well, we'll see what it is and see if I can match up to it. And then I realized it was essentially recruitment, but it wasn't like working for an external agency. It was one thing I didn't really want to do. It's a hard job working external recruitment, and I've spoken to people who have said like, you're thinking about that when you're going to bed. Are these people you're placing going to show up? And I just thought, well, I've kind of left that in hospitality a little bit. I don't want to go back to that. So this being in-house recruitment was really appealing to me. And the funny thing with my first interview, I interviewed with the agency, they put me through. And the funny thing, my first impression of SpicerHeart directly was that they didn't call me when they were meant to. I was meant
Oh
to have
gosh.
yeah, it was meant to be, it would have, I guess timeline wise, it would have been May Day it was a bank holiday. So it should have
Mhm.
been the day after on the Tuesday that they were going to call me in 2021. And they didn't call. I didn't get phone signal in the house. So I've been sitting in the car out on the driveway and no call. And I let the agency know. I think, or they contacted me later on how to go. I said, well, they never called. And then they're like, oh, that's really weird. They don't normally like that. And I believe that now, having met all the people. But basically, what I was told was that the bank holiday had confused their diaries. But I thought, well, it's either in the diary or it's not. So
Well,
some
yeah.
confusion happened, but I was curious enough, and I was in a position where I could be like, yeah, sure, reschedule. And I got phoned by a gentleman called Mike, who was one of the seniors on the team at the time. So we had a good chat. I think I was walking in the rain for that one because I had to get out of the car so he couldn't hear me properly. And I got invited to a final stage interview. And that was going to be a video interview because obviously back then you weren't really doing in-person ones
Mhm.
because COVID was still around. And I kind of decided before that, when I started to do a bit of research and I looked at the materials they sent me, because they sent me a lot of prep materials for it, to be fair. Um, I started thinking, God, this Spice Art, they're quite a big company. I knew Darlow's because I'm from Wales, and
Okay.
Darlow's has been everywhere whilst I've been a kid. Like I used to drive around as a kid in the car and see Darlow's signs everywhere, or Dawson's. They were the two big ones I remember seeing around all the time. I won't mention Dawson's too much, obviously a competitor, but Darlow's, I saw them everywhere. And the fact then I was like, oh wow, I could work for Darlow's. That'd be cool. And so I went to that interview with my now manager, and I really wanted the job. And I knew I didn't have all the experience, and I kind of drew on that in the interview as well,
Mhm.
talking about transferable skills. I was very honest about why I wanted to get out of what I was doing before. I luckily was speaking to someone who was incredibly understanding of that as well. And she didn't really care about experience. She could see the transferable skills. And then I didn't, like I remember getting out of the interview and going up to my wife. I said, like, she said, how did it go? And I was like, well, I did the best I could do. I said, if I
Mhm.
don't get that job, I will be gutted, but I know I've done the best I can do. I won't have any regrets. The interview went really well. So I was kind of like, I left everything on the table. So I didn't hear back for a little bit. I think the following week, they'd got in touch with me, and I found out later on that actually they decided there and then that they wanted to hire me, but they had other interviews that they needed to complete
Oh, okay.
first. So the waiting game, which I was feeling nervous about for about a week, turns out I had nothing to worry about. But so yeah, I got offered the job, and then I ended up coming into it, and I had to learn everything. Property, you've been working in it for years. It was a
Mm.
lot for me to learn, because you
Yeah.
do, even though it's recruiting, you need to know something about what you're recruiting for. So that's been quite a journey. Still is. There's still some
Mm.
roles that appear that I get asked to recruit for. I'm like, right, okay, I need to get on Google. I need to do some
Yeah.
work and find out a bit. But yeah, that was my sort of my attempt at a quick summary of how I ended up where I am. But three and a half years in now,
Mm.
climbing the ladder, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And And yeah, I haven't looked back really. It's been a great career move for me. I was very lucky to speak to people who were willing to take a stab and with me. I actually had started in another job before this one, only just a part-time admin one, just to get some money coming in, and I had to
Yeah.
leave that after 2 days. And then there was another employer that I'd interviewed with for a maternity cover for an admin role again, because they were all contacting me suddenly. Where were they 5 years before? Then they called me back after I started with SpicerHaart a
Okay.
week in, and they were like, "Yeah, we'd love to offer you the role." And I was like, "Sorry,
Yeah.
it's too late."
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I'm in a role that I'm really enjoying. So yeah, that brought me to SpicerHeart, and that's why I ended up in recruitment.
And you enjoy it? Hospitality and property are both very fast-paced industries, obviously. Do you find that recruiting for the roles that obviously you're being asked to recruit, is there a big, like a wide range of you're recruiting for if what was called the office junior is probably not called that anymore.
Mm,
And I don't mean to be rude in that respect, but are you recruiting from to like director level,
yeah.
like all the way through? So you do have to know such a wide range of aspects.
Yeah, weirdly, I was talking about that last week with my manager, just about the different varying roles that we recruit for, even when we come in with no previous property experience. A lot of the team are like that who've come on board. Some have had experience in
Mm.
the industry, but when I started out, I was on lettings. So we had two recruiters for all of lettings. Now, for those who don't know, SpicerHeart, it's a national company, so all over England, we're in Wales as well. Lettings is sort of split into two categories. You've got like well, now it's called North and South. So
Hmm.
the South had about 6 regions in it as well. So I was given all of that. So I had to do all the recruitment for any lettings negotiator roles of any level, lettings branch managers, lettings area directors if those came up,
Mm.
and then property management, which was the one that eventually we basically had someone coming back to the team join us, and we knew that we were about to go big on property management, with growing it. So I got offered to do property management for the whole company instead, move out of lettings. So I specialized a little bit then. But prior to
Yeah.
that, then there was a lot of research in like with branch managers trying to work out, what do they need different
Mm.
um, to like just even a negotiator. And I realized actually in this industry, a lot of the time people who, or at least previously, have worked up into those branch manager roles are sometimes it's been the best salesperson or something in the
Yeah.
in the office, and that's how they get there. Whereas I was coming from an industry where you had no way to measure that in the past. So like who's
Mm.
in hospitality, you just kind of you have to find the right person you trained with the all round attributes. So that was a bit of a learning experience, and even now, property management being my main thing I recruit for, I've still got other roles. I've recruited, as you know, property management director level roles and
Yeah.
operations directors. I've currently got another brand new kind of operations management role in a different part of the company that I'm looking after, as well as health and safety advisors. It's bonkers because the companies do so much stuff. They offer so many services, and
Yeah.
they got that head office building as well with group services there, which have all sorts of different roles, which have very little to do with property that you
Mm.
recruit for. So it's um, it's quite interesting that it makes it a bit my LinkedIn is populated with property people now. Like I'll never be able to, if I change industry, I don't know, I'll probably have to abandon my LinkedIn because
Yeah.
it's
Start
not,
again.
yeah, I'll have to start again on it. But yeah, I think coming from the fast paced thing of hospitality, going back to what you asked, I found with the bits that I've been recruiting for, it's always been high volume applications and such. Like I'm looking at my diaries open on my other screen right now, and I'm for this week, and I'm just like, I can't even believe how much is in there. And I'm used to that from hospitality being quick, and
Mm.
I don't, and that was never an issue for me when I worked in hospitality. That like just the constant because you go in, that's the only way I know how to work, just on the go constantly. But I've kind of brought that into this role, so I cram my diary. I give myself one day a week, a Monday, where I'll normally in many ways refuse other appointments. I'm kind of like that's my day to just get everything in order,
Yeah.
get through all my CVs, make sure I'm up to date and everything, and then the rest of the week gets filled out. And I've always had roles where we've always had a lot of interest in them. So from low level to high level.
You touched on your mental health there, but how do you try and maintain your well-being ultimately in such a demanding role? Do you know how to look after yourself now, or is it still a bit of a challenge?
Yeah, I'm better equipped, I think, now than I have a good work-life balance now with this role in particular. My work day, 9 till 5, 5:30. It's generally speaking, my boss is not expecting me to work on. After that, if I do that, it's off my own back, and I know that it is off my own back. I've chosen
Mm.
to do that. I remember getting in trouble before. It was a Friday, it's just after I got given a work laptop. because we used to only have the stuff in the office, and I had
Yeah.
a work laptop because to work from home one day a week at the time because my partner needed me to be a bit more flexible. I'd forgotten to do like an update for all my area directors. I always send them an update every week on where we're at with all their vacancies because sometimes I could have 20 vacancies, I could have 50 vacancies I'm dealing with at any
Mm.
time. And I send out that update every week. I'd forgotten to do it. And I remember I was in bed, I think, when I remembered. So I was like 11:30 at night, I think, and I was like, oh, I'll get the laptop out. It'll only take me an hour. I'll get it done because I need peace of mind that no
Yeah.
one's going to be like, oh, Kyle didn't update me on this or that. So I did that, and then I think it sent an alert or something to my manager, the email when I sent it out or whatever it was. And I think I had a response. It was like, I'm in the pub. Why are you online? It was like, get off. And I was like, right, okay, sorry, my bad. So they take it, my boss takes that seriously. So that's
Mm.
helped a great deal. There are some times where I have to put in a bit more time if things are really particularly hectic, but I don't mind that. In this role, I've had a lot of autonomy with how I do my role. And
Hmm.
so, like my diary, I have complete management of that myself. So I think that's helped me to structure my days in such a way that I never get overwhelmed. And yeah, just from a personal perspective, I think I know the signs to look for myself now if I feel myself struggling, which to be honest, I knew to look, I could look for me when I had that near bit, well, yes, I can call it a breakdown really. 5 years ago, and it was the 19th today, so 9 days. So 5 years ago and 9 days, because I remember it was my sister's birthday, and I was
Okay.
working, so I had a proper breakdown. And so I knew then what to look for, and that's why I got myself help, because I'd been in a
Mm.
similar situation following my divorce about 5 years prior to that. Things that suddenly didn't matter to me as much for being
Right.
around for, I don't need no trigger warnings or anything. I'm not going to go deep, but I realized again that was the case, and I was like, right, I need to call someone. So I think I can quite confidently say now that these things probably would not happen for me.
Mm.
Well, as confidently say that as you can, but
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
look for the yeah, you never know, you never know. But no, I feel very much in control of all of that stuff, and just with my job, like I said, being able to manage that diary when I know I've got a Monday where I can just get through everything. I'm not chilled on a
Mm.
Monday, I'm not sitting here with like my feet up doing the work, but it's like I know that because it's hard to face people sometimes. Like
Yeah, it is.
it's some. I spend a lot of time talking to people, and sometimes
Mm.
it's the same conversation a lot of the time for the especially screening calls. We do loads of those, so you do need a little bit of time to reset. But I have outside work stuff as well, so I think it's really important for anyone to be able to do so. And that actually makes me finish work when I should as well. Like tonight, I've got train my daughter's football team on a Wednesday. Do the same for my son's team. So these kind of things force me out. Thursday, my dog's been on his own most of the day, apart from the dog walkers come. So it's like, go get back to the pup. So all these things are they all align
Yeah.
quite well. And so I think that's helped me a lot.
Great that you've got the self-awareness now, and maybe that comes with age, or maybe that comes with experience, or just being through it and getting through it. But it's good that you recognize it, because a lot of people don't, and a lot of people go through the same cycle, over and over again, and kind of don't learn from those bad experiences. So it's great that ultimately that you do. But in terms of recruiting them for various candidates, does their mental health come up? Do they have any concerns potentially about, if they're moving from working in one, estate agent or letting agent, and they want to move over to SpicerHeart? If they've had a bad experience, does that tend to come up in discussions, like initial discussions, or do you find that people still keep it to themselves as that, taboo subject?
The truth is, it's probably a little bit of the latter. I think some people worry that if they were to bring up things like that, that it could negatively impact their application. It wouldn't. But it has come up as candidates. I could probably count on across two hands how many
Yeah.
times. But a lot of the time about like their reasons for leaving other jobs outside of the industry, and sometimes you hear the things or the conditions that they've identified caused that problem, and you're thinking, well, because I mostly recruit for property managers, you're thinking you've got to be quite resilient as a property
Mm.
manager. So you do sometimes think you have to kind of pitch the role back to them and say, look, you might be encountering these kind of situations, tough conversations,
Mm.
conflict. Do you feel comfortable now to be able to deal with those? And they'll be honest and stuff themselves. But yeah, we do get people do bring it up. We talk about all our job adverts have the details for our employee assistance program that we have on there as well. So that's advertised. So some of the people who have really looked at the job descriptions and will highlight that. It's listed in the benefits sections. They might have some questions. But I think that by and large, people don't bring it up because, like I said, it is
They're
that
still
taboo.
scared to.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get it. I get it because probably have in the past been in all sorts of roles elsewhere. Have maybe mentioned that, and someone might be like, "Oh, I don't want to bring that baggage into our workplace." It's like, well, it's not baggage. It's what people are like. We're all like it. Look at me.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was a mess at one point in my life, like So,
Mm.
and I like to think I'm well past that. So, yeah, it does come up in conversation, but it's not. We don't have any questions sort of designed to start that conversation, if that makes any sense. If someone wants to sort of bring it up, like I said earlier, it comes a little bit from discussing reasons for leaving previous
Yeah.
jobs and the like, and then it's kind of you need to be honest with them then about what the demands of this particular role they're applying for might be, because you might sometimes think that is a lot of hours with the roles I'm normally recruiting for, and yeah, like it is sometimes some conflict,
Yeah.
and they got to be suitable for it. And because if they're not, then I wouldn't want to put someone in an environment that I could tell from the first call is going to potentially be harmful. So yeah, we have these conversations every now and then.
Yeah, definitely. So tell me what advice you would give to someone considering a career in property management.
Well, from a mental health perspective, or just in general?
No, just in general. If somebody was to come to you tomorrow and say, "Do you know what? I haven't really worked in property before, but I really like the sound of it. Can you give me some advice, or
Yeah.
where should I start? Any tips?"
One of the things I often have to say to people, because I'll hear the phrase stepping stone a lot of the time, and particularly because our company have so many different services we offer, like pretty much a one-stop shop for anything property related. People do see it as almost like, oh, I'll get a role and then I'll eventually move into what I want to do. And I do say to them, like, ultimately, if you see yourself in sales, apply into sales now. So I would say apply for the job they want. I do talk about the skills. I get asked quite a lot actually on like calls, saying when I ask people if they have any questions for me, one of them is like, what do I need to do to be a good property manager, or
Hmm.
what should I be aware of? And that word I used earlier, resiliency, it's one quite often that the managing director has used when I've spoken with him about what we're looking for. And I say you got to be resilient, because in property management, right, a lot of the conversations aren't always starting on a positive note,
Hmm.
because there's no reason really for a tenant to get in touch with you unless there's something that
Yeah.
they want fixed. Because if they're happy
Yeah.
in life and they're happy in their house, they've got no reason to get hold of the property manager. So I always say that quite often your start with the client or the tenant is going to be starting on a negative. But I said,
Mm.
the thrill, the reward comes from flipping that and turning that into a positive, touch wood. And so as long as you're able to deal with that as well, then good. Yeah, as long as you're in our company in particular, we're like very much a hard work, high reward
Hmm.
culture. So we're saying as long as you're willing to work, if you can have awkward conversations sometimes, but ultimately we are very customer focused. So if you're good with customer service, if you've got a background in that as well, you're perfect for the role. A little bit of admin, even better. We just want, as long as you've got people skills and you like dealing with people and solving problems, and that's all I can say to people. Really, I
Yeah.
always recommend people research the roles in some detail. Our company in particular, property managers, it's very specific roles. So we don't. You go to some companies where like they'll just be a lettings neg, but actually that company might be smaller, and so they're actually doing a lot of the property management responsibilities.
Hmm.
So we have to identify that and just say to them, well, you can come check in all the way through to check out with us, but you won't be doing viewings. So it's just about, I make sure they understand the role properly. I think sometimes, and I learned this a bit when I first started recruiting for these roles, is that if someone's got the wrong idea of what property management is, I think it can be a bit of a wake-up call when they get into the role and they realize they're
Hmm.
not doing what they thought they would be doing. So that's something that I learned quite probably 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
So I try to pass it on to people to make sure they've got a very clear picture of what they're going into.
Yeah, and I suppose property management, it does vary, as you say, from business to business, but also like, I work in block management. Property management as a block manager is going to be different to property management of somebody's house or flat,
Yeah.
or even through like to the commercial route, if you like, somebody's office space. So can you tell me then any misconceptions maybe that of what people think property management is compared to what it actually is?
Coming back on what you said initially, just then, though, about the different parts of property management, that's something we encounter a lot as well. So, like when we're looking for managers to lead our teams for recruitment, we have a lot of people in block management trying to come over, and that would be great normally, but there are different regulations we
And
need
it's
to
the
some.
same the other way as
Yeah,
well.
exactly. Yeah,
We see it
so
a lot. with
Yeah, it's a
letting
private.
agent who try to be block managers, like the legislation is a completely different
Yeah.
ball game. So
So
especially with fire safety.
yeah, so trying to manage people when they apply, and you're trying to manage the expectations. Say, look, you have a brilliant CV, but it's not quite right for what we need for this because
Mm,
we're doing private residential. Yeah, misconceptions. I think people think they're going to be out of the office more than they are. I think that's always one. So I try to manage that expectation. We do external visits ourselves in SpicerHaart, so it does get them out. They do get to see all sorts of great properties. It's not as much as what they think a lettings agent would be. So I think that's probably one of our biggest misconceptions. And actually, I'd probably list that one. And that normally comes up though in like when people are starting to say stuff that makes me think actually they'd rather be a lettings neg than a property manager, because if they want to be doing the viewings and if being out and about more is important to
mm,
them, so they want to be out, doing canvassing and stuff like that, then actually
yeah.
realize that maybe they're applying for the wrong role, and you can identify that earlier. And I think we're
Mm,
better at that now as a recruitment team as well. The way we've changed things is, we do ask stuff to try and pick into that a bit more, so we don't end up with someone in the wrong role. But yeah, I think that biggest misconception is they'll be out and about more and there'll be more negotiating involved, and there is an element of
mm.
that. They do the tenancy extensions and renewals on our teams, but yeah, those things aren't something that they're generally doing within their role.
So thinking over the next 5 years, how do you see the property landscape? And that could be in recruitment, or that could be working within property management, or as you say, lettings, estate agent, sales. How do you see that evolving or changing in the next 5 years?
Just got done by one of my own questions. So
That wasn't intentional.
yeah, I see. So I just thought of another misconception actually, which was that everyone thinks they can be a manager when they come in as a property manager. Another conversation. Where do I see it all going? Well, from a recruitment perspective, it's an interesting one because I went to an event called RecFest back in June or July of this year, and that's like a you wouldn't believe the scale of it. It's this massive recruitment event that people from external agencies, in-house teams, they're all there. There's guest speakers flown in from like around the world. It's like a massive festival. There's tents,
Hmm.
everything. And
Okay.
there's actually a DJ and a disco after. A disco makes me sound so old, doesn't it? Big party after, and beers and everything. But prior to that, all the talks, it was all about AI. So everything
Mm,
was about AI. I was quite surprised how much actually, and it did make me think when I came out of it, because all of recruitment is gearing towards utilizing AI more. I now use it as well myself. I try to make our job descriptions as bespoke to that particular vacancy as possible, like the location, because otherwise people go on your website, they're just seeing the same job advert with a different city listed next to it. I think
hmm
it's just like wallpaper. So try to at least have a different opening statement on each one. So use AI to help me with that sometimes, because when you're doing, but then I think the important thing though, and this is why you still need to have humans doing it, is that you need to add a bit of soul to what
mm,
AI is giving you. So rewording what it's written, make it sound like a human being wrote it as well. That's important. I think that's going to come over into the property landscape as well. Like we've got Flink, our software that sort of ties in with social media and helps people find properties they're looking for specific for them. I don't know what his plans are, but I know our executive chairman, Paul Smith, is very focused on wanting to introduce AI into the business more as well. I don't know what methods they're using for that yet with the
hmm
CEOs and stuff, but I know they're having talks on that. So I think that the future of the business is very much geared that way. From what I can see anyway, from my little corner of it, I mean, you might have seen it as well. That there's a lot of smaller agencies getting purchased now by the larger companies.
hmm
We've been very open ourselves that we're now in the market to buy again. So we'll be doing a bit of that too. So I think that you're going to see maybe the more independent ones disappear a little bit off the
mm,
streets, which is hopefully, if we keep the teams on and stuff, then it's great for those people who've got more secure jobs. But I think we'll see a lot of that. So you might see more of the brand names appearing
mm,
elsewhere. But like from our perspective, we have partners not kind of linked to an office, but in areas that don't have offices. So that sort of scope for us to be able to reach more people is there without having to necessarily have a brick and mortar building somewhere. So I think
mm,
we plan to double down on that as a company over the next few years. But yeah, I think AI is the main one, and
mm,
I don't think anyone can know exactly what that would look like in 2 years, 3 years, because it's evolving
yeah.
at such a grand pace on such a
Mm,
grand scale. But yeah, we're trying to use it as much as we can now. I've seen some of the software that was at like that RecFest, and stuff I've seen since is like you can get interviewed by AI, which is bonkers because you could
and a little
literally
bit worrying.
a little bit worrying because essentially a computer program will decide whether or not you're suitable for
Mm,
a role. And I hope, and I'm confident in the company that I'm in, that will never be something we would move towards. We, as a company, we're still all about picking up the phone, and calling our clients. So I think that for us, the human element is really important. And
Yeah,
so I can't
definitely.
imagine we'll do anything within our offices or within our recruitment teams, such as ours, that will take away that human element of interaction. And I think that that combined with just right now, I'm so busy because we're doing a massive growth as a company to bring in people from outside the industry
Mm.
to start careers with us. So I think from our perspective, the next 5 years is really going to be about creating the managers of the future. But I think that's probably the next 5 years. That's the best answer I can give you.
Oh no, I mean I think it's exciting, isn't it? I mean the whole AI thing is a little bit scary, but
Yep.
exciting at the same time. Obviously, we wouldn't want AI to take people's jobs, which I think is the biggest fear around
Yeah.
it at the moment. Especially as you say, if you can get AI to interview you, that's great from a time perspective or a time management perspective for the recruiting manager, if you like. But yeah, still a little bit worrying for people like yourself who do those initial interviews. So but can you tell me a bit about maybe a success story that you're particularly proud of throughout and it doesn't have to be your career with SpicerHeart, it could be teaching somebody English or anything like that.
Yeah.
Is there something you're particularly proud of or something that was particularly rewarding?
Probably nothing from my current role jumps out. There's lots of them, but the one that
Of
really jumps
course.
out to the question that you asked was, I think back about 10 years ago. So when I was still in hospitality, got around now when I got my first area manager role, I was very, very focused on training people and helping give them opportunities that I'd had to fight for to become a
Mm,
younger manager. And I was told specifically I couldn't get my area manager role. So I went for one initially in that company, and they'd never promoted internally into that role before for an area manager. But they said, look, we can't go yet because if you leave, your office is doing great, but if you leave that office, you've not got a succession plan in place. It'll fall apart. What's the point in us promoting you if we're then going to lose money on
mm,
the other business? So I fixed that. 6 months later, they gave me a job as an area manager. But then a few months, probably about 6 months after that, or a year later, I looked at the company and we had about, I think it was 9 or 11 offices at the time. I think it was nine. I think about seven of them at that point had their managers were people that I had trained,
hmm
I'd brought in, raised them up, or had been responsible for recruiting them and bringing them in and training them. And I looked at it and I was just like, wow, these are all people that I've actually helped, and they're
mm,
now getting more money and they're on career paths that they wouldn't have been on. And then I remember at that time looking back at other places I'd worked and had seen loads of it. I thought, well, I've actually left everywhere I've gone, I've left people behind in a stronger place who worked under
mm,
me, who are now managers, and they're not all in hospitality now. Some of them, because it is an industry that quite often you do leave after a while.
mm.
But I was like, wow, I played a part in that because there wasn't always that for me when I was coming through. So I do feel like I created those opportunities for people.
Mm,
You got to have the right people; they got to want it, obviously.
of course.
But yeah, I feel like I love a training guide. I love putting a training guide together, and I used to have this philosophy of if I was training people up, if they came with their first day of training to be like a team leader or a supervisor with me, if they didn't have a notepad with them, I'll be like, right, we're not doing it today, because I'm like, you're not going to remember all this in your head and do it
Yeah.
effectively. So I'm like, bring a notepad. We'll start tomorrow, and then after that, I started doing my own training guides. I'm still doing it at my current role now, actually, and trying to get our little recruitment bible, so to speak, together
Mm,
for the office. So I'm still doing that years later. But yeah, I think my biggest, most rewarding experiences I've had have been from other people's success and just
mm.
knowing that I helped probably contribute to that. And I think one way I kind of recognize that as well is when I had switched jobs in hospitality, I had quite often had people want to come with me or want to work for me again. I always took that as that's a sign you're doing something right. Don't get me wrong, there was
Yeah.
probably some people who did not ever want to work with me again. But
Thank goodness he's gone.
they're loving life. They were glad I was gone. But I've always thought the only people who ever had an issue with me when I was a manager or anything was people who didn't really want to work actually.
Mm,
And so those who were on board for it, wanted to buy into my ideas, then they're the ones who want to follow me everywhere. And I think that's always for any manager. That's a good feeling to
yeah.
have. Obviously, I've left management now. That was one of the things I said in my interview, actually. You talk about when I got this job. I'd said to my boss, I said, look, I've been managing for years now. I just want to be able to clock in, clock out, do my job, go be a dad. And then about 12 months later, I was getting the itch again, and I was like, right,
Oh,
let's start talking about progression at that point.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that yeah, that was one of the most rewarding things I think being when I was managing was
Mm.
yeah, other people's journeys than my own.
Yeah, and seeing people thrive. And what is it, the phrase that you need to be the person that you needed
Yeah,
in the,
absolutely.
be the person that you needed in the world or something like that. And I
Yeah.
always take that quite literally, because I remember sort of, coming up the ranks in various jobs that I've had since, over the last 20 odd years, just thinking that, there were some managers who just didn't give a damn. And as long as I was at my desk at 9 and whether or not I was still working at 7 o'clock, didn't care. I try and put my all into my team, and and I don't always get it right, and I don't think anybody gets it right
Mm.
100% of the time, but I do, I try my best every
Yeah.
day with them, and I hope that I can be to them what I never had, if that
Yeah.
if that makes sense. But what would you say the most rewarding part of your job is now? Because obviously you've
Mm.
spoken about your
Yeah.
time as a manager. What would
Yeah.
you say is a rewarding thing now for you?
It's I can answer this one so easily. It's exactly what I said in my interview for this role, my final interview. I can't remember what the question was, but I'd said that basically I loved when I used to interview people in recruit and this idea that they'd go onto like Facebook and post that they'd got their new job, and then
Hmm.
everyone's family members or friends are comment and say, "Oh my God, you deserve this. Well done." You know all the kind of things
Yeah.
people write.
Yeah, yeah, of
And
course.
I used to just love because I wouldn't see those posts obviously because I haven't got these people on social media, but I used to get such a rush from knowing that that's probably like all that positive energy
Hmm.
that I've given someone that opportunity by being the one making that decision. It's a bit different in this role now because I'm not the one who makes the final decision. Obviously, we have to get through direct line managers, there's hiring
Yeah.
managers, and sometimes people you're really rooting for, it doesn't work out and it sucks. And those are the worst parts because you got to call them.
Mm.
But when it works, you're like, oh man, I helped with that. And I did everything I could to help with that. And that's such a positive feeling. And a lot of people come back to me as well and are quite grateful for the help I give. I think that once upon a time I could have said that maybe I was going above and beyond with some of the help I was trying to provide,
Hmm.
but now I think that's just what should be expected. So now I just do it anyway, and I'm trying to look at other ways
Yeah.
to go above and beyond. But just that rush of knowing that someone's so happy they got a job and everyone's so happy for them, and knowing that
Mm.
in this role I picked their CV out of thousands
I'm
of
sure you
CVs.
I'm sure you get so many you
Yeah,
have
I
to
know
look
I
at.
can't. Even today, I think I've had like 50 or 60 applications come through today alone for my
Mm.
vacancies. So the idea that I can go through them and that I picked that one person, and when they didn't answer the first time, I still sent a follow up to try and get that second call. There's some people in some very prominent roles in this company who never answered me the first time when I tried to get hold of them, but I didn't give up.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't give up, and then here we are now later, and they're working for us. So I think that that's the most rewarding part of my role right now
Mm.
is knowing that feeling other people get because we've all
Yeah.
felt it. Yeah, we've all been the one making that post once upon a time, got this new
Oh,
job, or
absolutely.
yeah, LinkedIn is always full of it. It's if you put in
Mm.
and someone started a new job, whatever the post is, it brings up, and
Yeah.
all the good energies that's coming with that. And that was my reason for really wanting this to get into this line of work, and it still is, to be honest, more than anything. I'd be a bit gutted if I ended up advancing to a point in my career now where I wasn't still doing a little bit of that. Like I'd still want to be getting that feeling of helping change some people's lives. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen after you brought them in, whatever industry you're in.
Oh,
That you can't control that, but
no.
that immediate thing and that excitement, you can help play a part in it. That for me has been really important.
Yeah. And is that, do you think, what keeps you passionate about doing the role that you do? Or is there anything else that, jumps out at you?
Uh, well, there is that. I've always just been a hard worker, if I'm honest. I can't imagine slacking off. It just isn't in my. It's just not in how I work. I remember a couple of years ago we had I think the internet went down across our company, I think, and so for like the first day or two of the year, and so people couldn't do anything on in our line of work. Everything was online. Even our phones were connected to the
Mm.
internet, so we couldn't take
Yeah.
calls or do calls. But I rinsed my data allowance on my own phone, just trying to browse and screen CVs on my smartphone for those 2 days instead. Whilst some other people had books in front of them, they were reading, but
Wow.
I was there on my smartphone, just going through it. And I tell you what, trying to screen CVs on your phone is not the easiest thing.
I'm
Zooming in
sure.
because I just don't know any better. And and I always want to stay on top of everything as well. I always try to do introduce lots of ideas and stuff that is designed to make me busier, really. You want to get more applications in, you want to growth of the company, it means being busier, yeah. So I'm always doing those things, but it means I've got to stay on top of it, otherwise it falls
Yeah.
apart. And so I'm almost always having to keep up with myself with all those
Yeah.
things. So I think that's something that drives me. I'm very mindful as well that, particularly in this role that I'm in now, with LinkedIn being a much more prominent part of my life and career now than it ever was before. I don't think I logged into it for like 5 years before I took on this job, but the your name's out there. Google reviews are always pushing to try and get reviews, and your name is in there. And this idea of getting like a 1-star review with my name in it, oh man, that
Yeah.
would that keeps me going. I think because I don't
Mm.
try to give the best experience I can to everyone. I'm the one who speaks to them. I hold people accountable. People within my own company, if they're not coming back to me quick enough, I push and I push and I chase and I chase.
Mm.
Probably really pee some people off with it, but it's because I'm the one. Is my name attached to it? Like these
Mm.
people are they're gonna think of me in a good or bad way, and so my own reputation, I think, it drives me a little bit. It's quite funny that, like, from a personal perspective, I've never really particularly put much thought to what people might think of me, ever. But professionally, I think it has always kind of mattered to me, probably from when I was so young in management and
Yeah.
trying to get higher, because you're just trying to get people to notice you. And so now I take it very seriously. And so I try to I'm so process driven to the point where I think I drive other people mad in my office. All these things. I like to be able to, I think accountability is really important. I hold myself accountable if I don't do stuff right. Just had a one-to-one last week where I realized that in the I don't say the negative columns in the bit about like improvement and what can improve. I realized I'd put the same thing in for like 3 of these quarterly ones in a row. This time I was like, no, I'm going to take ownership of that now, because I've made excuses twice or 3 times for
Okay.
for this. So I was like, now I'm going to put it in the wording in there that I'm holding myself accountable. I haven't done this. The excuses aren't good enough. I need to get on it. So I think that probably what's helped drive me is just not wanting to think I'm rubbish. My partner always says that when she hears me, because I do some work from home in this role, and I'm home right now. Actually, I can hear her downstairs, but she'll sometimes say, "Oh God, when I hear you talking, you're so good at your job," and I'm like, "Oh, thanks, that's nice." I mean, I'm faking it,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm glad. I'm
I'm
glad
sure you're
yeah,
not.
but I'm glad I come off that way though, because that's quite important to me. I don't want someone to feel that they've just spoken to someone who hasn't got a clue.
Mm.
And sometimes when I don't have a clue, Jodie, I will honestly tell people as well. I say, look, I'm not the person to ask, but I will try and find out the answers
Mm.
for you. And so yeah, just try and stay honest as well.
Yeah. And saying that, as a recruiter, that's a big part of property management as well. Like you're not going to know every single little thing. It's impossible to know all of that. You can know little snippets about everything, but I'm not a lift engineer. I don't know how lifts work.
Yeah,
It's not working,
yeah,
so I will phone the lift engineer to tell them to
yeah,
come out. And it's but there is quite a big expectation in my industry that we know everything. And when we don't, we can get quite a bit of backlash from that. So I'm glad that you've said that in a way that it's important to highlight that we're not going to know everything. It's impossible. Even lawyers don't know every tiny little bit of the law because they
yeah,
specialize, and we specialize ultimately in the management of it. So we know where to go to get that information. And so with you, as long as you know where to go to get the information for that candidate, then then great. And as long as you go back to that candidate, they're going
yeah,
to know that you helped them. So
yeah.
you're not going to get a 1-star review from that for that.
No, hopefully not. It's funny as well. I think we talking about misconceptions earlier. I think kind of on the lines of what you're talking there. A lot of time people think I'm a property manager, or they think I'm from the company, like, as in working from the office and managing them. So I think sometimes that means I get faced with some questions that I don't have all the answers to immediately, and I'm like kind of like, oh no, I do just recruit, but I've just done PM recruitment specifically for 3 years, but I was aware of that happening. So I think about 2 years ago, I asked to attend some of the property management and lettings training
Okay.
courses. This was it was post-COVID, but a lot of stuff's still being done virtually. So
Hmm.
they happened to have a lot coming up. So there was a 3-day course that they were doing virtually, just all over our video platform. There was another one, a legal course as well. And I sat in on them, cleared my diary. I was really grateful to my manager for allowing me to do it as well. And I was just in there. I wasn't having to partake in the conversation. Obviously, I would have not known anywhere near as much as even the newbies that were
Mm.
joining. But I was able to. I was coming across some stuff in there that I was like, wow, that's kind of mind blowing, and I knew stuff. And I managed to retain some of it as well. I made loads of
Mm.
notes. I probably need to do a refresher on it at some point because it's been a couple of years now. But
Mm.
I wanted to be as informed as I could because there's only so many times though you can say, "Oh, let me ask someone else, so I'll find out the answer." It's kind of like, well,
Yeah.
I'll try and learn as much as I can to be able to give you the details. But yeah, that was always interesting. Sitting on that, that was eye opening as to some of the work that PMs do. Well
Yeah.
done, well done, because yeah, the legal stuff was just like wow. There's so much, and it's a legal minefield. Most things as well, like so
It
you get it
certainly
wrong, and
is.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously had 7, 8 years since Grenfell of all the fire safety regulations and everything in that respect, and it just blows your mind sometimes, and it constantly changes as well. So as you say, I would do a refresher if I were you,
yeah,
because
yeah.
it can be a little bit daunting at times. But yeah, but before I let you go, and thank you again for
Mm.
being on, is there anything else you'd particularly like to share about your journey, or the company, or anything like that before I let you go?
Well, I'll do the company first.
Okay.
That bit's sit in my head. So I'm by no means on this podcast as a spokesperson for SpicerHaart, and so they can disown me if they want from this. But
I'm sure they
the
won't.
what we're doing right now with people without experience is incredible. So we've just opened the SpicerHeart Academy. So
Okay.
we've got a purpose-built space now in our head
Wow.
office building in Colchester. There's currently 4 rooms, I think. I'm trying to remember, I was there a few months ago, and we've got like one room's like a classroom setting. There's another room which is more computer based. There's a break room. There's another room. It's a role playing room for our agents to learn in. It's got a really cool
Mm.
like fake front door that you can do the role plays through. And we're taking on people for that for training level roles, which we've created, and it's designed for people who've never done this before. We do it for estate agents, lettings agents, and property managers. If someone's joining us who hasn't got any experience, they go there for 2 weeks. We put them up in a hotel. We pay their food costs all week. We pay the hotel costs.
Hmm.
We property managers go for a week because it's a little less for them to have to do for what we do with their training plan. But these people join with a set 12-month training plan as well, and a bespoke commission package for them. And we launched that, I think, on the first Monday of August, and we've already had over 150 people come through it
Wow.
in what we're on now, 3 months, yeah, about 3.5 months. So
Mm.
over 150 people through that. That's 150 plus people who've never worked in this industry who are actually now going into our offices with a level of training that we were never able to provide before. Like they're with our L&D team for those 2 weeks. We have management going in, spending time with them from all different levels of seniority. They're getting their training and development followed through as well. Like the L&D team is still in touch with them. We're doing our check-in calls with them from the recruitment team and stuff. And these are people now who are on career paths. Like they've got careers.
Mm.
And I experienced it myself when my manager took a punt on me for it being a new role that called on some transferable skills. And we're very much doing that right now. It's been a huge success. I think that Portsmouth's already announced online that we're going to double it in size, the actual facility next year.
Wow.
So to keep up with it, 'cause it's full. Like we've had to put in more classes, and
Mm.
the L&D team, I don't know how they're doing it. Fair play to them, because it must be constant. But the opportunities that's giving people, and I've had people joining from all sorts of backgrounds. This week alone, the Property Management Academy started on Monday, and the people, I won't give specific jobs where what they've done just for like GDPR, but there's
Mm.
all sorts of just roles you would never think of. I had someone before. I always ask them on there. We do like a call now with them as well in the week before they start with us, get them all together on a video call and say, look, these are the faces you're going to be hanging around with. You may see them in the hotel the day before you
Mm.
start, or and I always ask them, like, what was your first job? Just as a bit of an icebreaker, because I hate that whole thing of like, tell me something interesting about you, because suddenly Did you not
There
just
isn't
become?
anything interesting about
No,
me.
that's it, isn't it? Like you suddenly become
Yeah.
the least interesting person you've ever known. Like
Yeah.
because you're like, I don't know anything interesting about myself, even though there's probably loads. But so asking about the first job, and some of the first jobs I had, I think someone was like a, I think it was like a go kart in, it was counting laps, a lap counter or something, a go karts thing. And I was amazing. I didn't even know that job existed.
No.
So yeah, we've got people from all sorts of backgrounds coming in, and I think we do a similar academy thing for like through our mortgages division, and that's a whole different beast to
Mm.
how they manage that. But what we've launched with this estate agency and lettings and property management, I think it has changed our business in the offices, and they're making tangible differences already. It can be seen in the numbers,
Mm.
and we've had feedback from managers as well, is that they wish that their new starters who might have started a few weeks before the academy had started, they wish they'd been able to get them through the academy, because they would have got so much further training as well
Right.
to what they had. So I think that it's been a big thing for us, and I think it's gonna help us change our business for the future. It costs a lot. You can imagine
Mm.
like 150 people, I said. We put them all up in
Yeah.
hotels, most of them for 2 weeks at a time. You were paying
Mm.
their food, everything, and the cost of the trainers there. We're investing in people. So when we put online that all the things about progression and things, we're not just saying this. I speak to people every day who were promised progression opportunities and didn't get them
Mm.
wherever they were. But I can say like we do have them. I've done it myself. I've progressed in my role and hopefully will again in the future. But the academy is something. So if anyone is listening to this who is thinking not sure how to get into a state agency, always like property, I hear that all the time. Yeah, you've probably
Hmm.
heard it before. SpicerHaart really would love to speak to you, because we are looking for you kind of people. We'd love to bring you in, but we want to give you an opportunity. Other people aren't taking these kind of gambles that we are, but we
Mm.
have confidence in our recruitment strategy that we're going to bring the right people in. Different age groups as well. Yeah, some people are coming straight from school for this, and some people are changing careers for in their 50s or 60s, and
Yeah.
which is great. We're open to everyone of every background. That's probably what I would, on a professional perspective, would finish with. Just say, get in touch with me if you want to come into the property industry. For my own journey, from a personal perspective, I guess it comes back a little bit to the mental health thing. And I keep saying this to my wife all the time with her employers, but your employer doesn't own you. So whatever job you're in, your free time is your time. If you want to give that up, you need to be the one to make that decision, not anyone else. And just remember that, as important as they might make you seem in a business, ultimately you could be replaced very very
Mm.
easily. So make sure that you are being valued and not being taken the mickey out of really in your roles. Because I've been there. I'm now in a place where I feel valued. It's lived experience, yeah. Like you kind of
Mm.
learn where your lines are. I think you're probably very much the same, Jodie, as well. From I've followed your journey through on LinkedIn and stuff, and some of the
Yeah.
stuff you put out there. So I think it's lived experience. I'd love to give that advice on to people though, and say like just you own your own career. If you're not getting opportunities where you are, then look
Yeah.
elsewhere, because there'll always be a manager promising you opportunities. But
Mm.
oh, I'll use a professional piece of advice before I go as well.
Oh, okay.
From a recruitment perspective, if you can't get the pay rise on the new promotion at your current employer, and then your employer only offers that to you once you've accepted a job elsewhere and they offer it to you to stay, then just ask them why that was not on the table before you said you were leaving, and see what they say. Because I've made that mistake where I've
Mm.
stuck around before. I don't know if you've done it, where I got offered more money to stay. It never ends well. And yeah, you start wondering, oh no, you could have done this months ago. Why didn't you? So keep that in mind for anyone applying for a job. I think
Yeah, I got offered a promotion to associate director and I got it in the end, probably because I annoyed him so much by whinging about it. But it was going from a senior property manager up to associate director, basically, so I wouldn't leave. And he made me feel all, fluffy, and it was all very,
yeah,
no, very nice, and we value you and all that kind of stuff. And then he just said, "Oh no, we can't do it now." I got it in the end, but still, that was a real kick in the teeth. And
yeah,
I did end up leaving because of some personal circumstances. My grandfather was very ill with cancer, and I decided to take a little bit of a break to look after him. But you kind of think, actually, you've done this to me, you've done this. I need to put my family first. And they replaced me. Of course they did. Bit like you, 2 years pretty much to the day. 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with sepsis because I was completely burnt out and wanted to do the, over and above and all that kind of stuff, and just so stressed, high levels of stress was which contributed to it. But, if something had happened to me or my business, my clients probably would have just got another managing agent,
yeah, it's very true.
but
Yeah, but
my,
that
my daughter wouldn't have got another
exactly.
if you think of it that way. So yeah. Anyway,
I
we've
think
got a bit deep now, haven't we?
yeah, well, the whole chat's kind of been like that. That's cool. I like having these conversations, and but
Yeah.
that experience you said then, like the
Yeah.
fact that you remember that experience, yeah. So you remember how you felt
Oh, I remember how
annoyed
I
and
felt.
angry,
Yeah.
yeah. So
I
like,
was
and yeah,
devastated though, because I'd given up a decent job elsewhere, or the possibility of a decent job elsewhere to have that promotion, and yeah, it was just whipped out from under me. Like I meant nothing, and it
yeah,
really bothered me, really
yeah.
bothered me for the next few years that I ended up staying, but
Hopefully,
not
people
not
listening
great.
then can learn from our lived experiences of it, and
Absolutely.
just if it doesn't feel right, then just move on, just go somewhere
Yeah.
else.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So how can people find you if they want to reach out?
I'm on LinkedIn. You can look for Kyle West. I think right now I have a bright yellow background on my pictures. You can't miss me. I am on social media on other channels as well for Kyle West Careers. Don't post too much on them right now. I'm just very busy. But if I get contacted through them, they do come to me straight away. But otherwise, best way to do it is through email. That's kyle.west@spicerheart.co.uk, or again on LinkedIn. Drop me a message, connect with
Okay.
me. But yeah, that's the main places you can find me.
Brilliant. Well, I'll put all your contact details in the show notes anyway, if people do want to reach out. But thank you again for being here. It's been a great chat, and hope our listeners get a lot of benefit from it.
Fingers crossed. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my latest podcast. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. The links are in the show notes. Or you can contact me on jodie@jodiefraser.com. For more content and updates, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favourite platforms. Thank you once again for listening. Until next time, take care.